Thanks, John. I appreciate the opportunity to join you this evening and introduce William for his featured presentation, Our Own Worst Enemy. William has worked in the correctional world since 2005. He is the author of two books, When Home Becomes a Housing Unit and The Nothing That Ever Happened. Both books highlight the emotional and psychological damage officers endure while working in the correctional environment. He has presented information about officer wellness at several agencies and conferences. He produces correctional content on his YouTube channel, Just Corrections. As John pointed out, many of William's videos and messages that he posts really resonated with me. I wish I could remember how I first came across him, but I don't. I just know that when I did, it really spoke to me. Since I started working as a SEAL a little over 20 years ago, there's been a culture that some of the things we see are just part of the job and you should just deal with it. I believe it's important to change this mindset and start conversations about how we can help ourselves and each other. I've shared William's work with and his content to many of my coworkers, including his latest book, and many of them have become fans of his as well, just because of the message he puts out. William's mission is to assist his fellow brothers and sisters by helping them identify, manage, and reverse the side effects and symptoms that serve us when subjected to stressful, challenging, and dangerous situations that are considered just part of our job. So on that, I'll welcome William.
That was probably the best introduction I've ever gotten ever in my life. So thanks for that, buddy. It's nice to finally talk to you. I've seen you in and out of the comments and some other things. And thanks, Katie, for reaching out to me, and thanks for having me tonight, guys. I was super pumped, super excited. Katie got me relaxed now, so I'm going to be toned down a little bit. I got into corrections. I'll just give you a little background on me, and then we'll talk a little bit about this, because I thought I wanted to be a police officer, and I got in, and I realized that this was a good fit for me. I really loved the job, and not only did I love the job, but I loved the people that I worked with, and the fact that, on the inside, people run to my rescue anytime there's an alarm to save my life is amazing. And on the outside, I can't get anybody to even help me move a couch. So I decided I wanted to stay and wanted to be part of this motley crew. And it's been one of the greatest things that I've ever done or been a part of in my life. But a few years ago, I took a little bit of a detour, and it was something simple that set it off. It was just a change in shift. So I was on day shift. Everything was good. Life was good. And then I got bumped to night shift, and I thought my world was over. I was working out, I was eating dinner with the family, I was doing all kinds of good things like that. And I started throwing a pity party for myself. That pity party turned into kind of a spiral, which turned into sort of depression, which led me to start to act out, to, kind of isolate. It really kind of was the catalyst to me recognizing that I had changed as a human being since before working in corrections. And so I started looking into it, and what I found was really scary. And the scariest thing was that there wasn't a lot of information out there for correctional officers. There wasn't a lot of people kind of, spearheading the cause here. A lot of people out there for police, fire, military, just not a lot for us, at least here in the United States. And so the other scary thing was that a lot of the side effects of working in corrections, like Joel mentioned, just part of the job, depression, divorce, suicide, mortality rates, lower than everybody else. Those are some pretty scary things. And so I said, I have to fix myself. I have to figure this out because something's wrong with me. And I got the information, and I started myself down a better path. And then I felt like I have to let other people know, because this is, to me, the most important piece of information a correctional officer will ever receive in their whole life. And that is that the environment, just the very essence of what jails and prisons are, will change you. Even looking into the profession, day one from the academy, you change. And we don't know that. We're not taught that, right? And so when we kind of progress in our correctional career, we become really good officers, but we're not so good at life anymore. And I wasn't sure why that was. And I came across a quote a few years ago, and it says, corrections has made me, this was from a veteran officer, corrections has made me calloused, untrusting, judgmental, unsympathetic. And I really, so I wrote that down and I really looked at it and I said, this is the key, right? This is why, a big piece of why we are the way we are. And that's because we're trained to change. We're trained to be cynical. We're trained to look at offenders as the enemy. And there's very good reason for that. I mean, if you look at it, untrusting, calloused, cynicism, those are all things in the correctional profession that keep you alive inside, right? Inmates lie to correctional officers. Inmates try to hurt correctional officers. We just heard about Mr. Keel and the terrible, terrible thing that happened to him. And, I just hear things like that. And that could have been me. That could have been Joel. That could have been any one of us that go to work every day, not knowing if we're going to go. And so that changes the way that you perceive people, right? And because the way that corrections is set up, the scheduling, the massive amounts of overtime, you are submerged in that environment for so long, 16 hours a day, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, for decades. And it starts to come home with you. And that's the other lie that we're told, right? Like, just leave work at work and home at home. And that's impossible. But we set ourselves up for this failure. And then we kind of get down the road and wonder what the heck's wrong with us. And so I started to see not only the change in myself, but the change in the officers that I work with, right? So a good kind of example of what I saw was we had a female officer that was working in a housing unit, and a female inmate jumped off of our top tier. She killed herself. And that officer was really, really affected by that. She couldn't come to work for a while, very traumatized by what she saw. And I mean, I don't blame her. I've seen a lot of craziness, and everything takes a piece out of you. And my administration, my work was very accommodating. They bent over backwards to make sure that she had the space, that she had the time, that she had the resources that she needed to get through what she was trying to get through. And that was great, right? But the problem is her coworkers weren't the same. Her coworkers said things like, "Oh, she can't work in this unit today, so I'm going to have to go in there." Or, how long is it going to take her to get over this? Or, is it really that, is she really affected by this? And I was like, you guys are terrible. Like, why are you talking about your sister like that? Like, why are you talking about this person who witnessed this terrible thing? And it's because we were trained to do that. We become numb over the years. We become emotionally eroded by all the things that we're subjected to. And for some of us, that to defend ourselves from that, we turn off our humanity. We stop seeing the people that we oversee as people. And again, just like lying, just like worrying about if people are manipulating you, just like watching your back everywhere you go, those things come home with you. And so you start to not trust anybody. You start to always look for the angle with everybody. I'll get a phone call from my brother-in-law at just the other night, 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday. And I'm like, oh, what does he want? Like, he's going to ask me for something. It's going to be, and my mind just goes, full blown CO mode, because that's the way I do it. Every time somebody comes up to me at work, I have to worry about an angle, whether it's a medical emergency, and that's one of the things that, when I was on Dr. Phil, they really were harping on and try to trip me up on was, I talked about being numb, and how, when an inmate comes up to you and is complaining of chest pains, in my head, I say, well, you're the third person, you're the 200th person that's come up to me and complained of chest pains. I still render aid, I still do all the things. And so they went on a tangent with it. But the point is, we are trained to not feel things because we can't. We can't cry. We can't laugh. We can't show fear. Those are all things that are told to us in the academy, in our training, and they clean it up, right? So they're not as, as crass as some of our veterans and field training officers. But I had a kid from California. He sent me his notes. He was super excited. Notes from day one. And rule number one was, don't trust anybody ever, inmates or staff. And I understand why they told him that, but I really feel bad for that kid, because I think it's setting them up, because you have to trust your fellow staff. We're all we have. And we sort of build up these walls and behave the way that we think that we're supposed to behave. And it's really doing damage to who we are as people. And so, yeah, so I put that article together for AJA in the magazine. What is it? We say a lot of things, and it really is. We are our own worst enemy when it comes to that. So much so that if somebody takes a sick day, we spend a whole entire 8-hour shift, speculating on why they're gone. Is it because it's payday? Is it because of this? Was their vacation denied? This person's lazy. They're scared to work here. And really, we don't know. We don't take the time to get to know each other, to really get to know each other, to say, hey, maybe that person's not here. Maybe that person's having a rough time because they're going through a divorce. Maybe they don't know where their kids are at. Maybe it's even worse. Right. So take this lady that jumped off the top tier. What a lot of people didn't know is that officer had recently experienced another suicide in her family. And so that like completely derailed whatever progress she was making. But nobody took the time to ask that. They just couldn't figure out why she was upset about this, inmate, right? That she watched fall and die. And that is pretty scary, because, that culture, right? So one of the things that I talk about, one of my presentations that I give to administrators, big shots, big wigs, is I got asked a couple of years ago, do something on wellness, right? And so I do 5 reasons that your wellness program is going to fail. And I talk a little bit about some things, but one of the things that I talk about is about correctional officers, about the correctional culture, and that no matter what is offered to us, what is presented to us, what resources people put in front of us, we're too stubborn or too cynical to even take it. I mean, in my role now, I talk with staff that are having troubles, that maybe need to seek professional help. They come to me and I kind of triage them a little bit, and then we try to get them help. And this week has been really busy. And every kid that comes in this week says, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I don't want people to look at me the wrong way. I mean, I'm trying to, I have an image to uphold, and I'm like, that's going to kill you. Right. And it's because the other people are wandering around talking bad about those people that are seeking help, that are saying, hey, look, I'm a human being, and the thing that I saw uh was crazy, and that's the other obstacle that we deal with, that we mess with, is that trauma. And I'm sure you guys are well aware of what that looks like, and that it looks differently for everybody, and that everybody has a different threshold. And so, but inside, we're all supposed to be really tough, right? Alpha males, alpha females. And so, six of us, do CPR on somebody, and one of us has a problem with it, but the other six, for whatever reason, maybe they don't care, maybe they've done it before, whatever, five of us are okay and one of us breaks, and instead of offering help like we would in a physical altercation, in a situation where I said, hey, I got to handcuff this super big dude like Joel. Like Joel looks like a big dude. I would ask for help if I had to drag him out of a cell, right? And people would be like, yeah, let's do it. They'd be frothing in the mouth, and it'd be a good time. But if I said, hey, when I walked by and did my rounds last night, that stuff that Joel said to me kind of scared me, kind of freaked me out a little bit. Man, I would get torn to pieces. Because what do you mean? All he did was say something to you. What even is that? Like our misunderstanding of what trauma actually is and what can do to people is terrible. And thankfully in the last couple of years, we have this, this movement to give this information to correctional officers, but a lot of people won't touch it because they're afraid of it. Because once you start kind of peeling the cap back on this thing, it's pretty scary, right? It's years and years of crust that you've built up, that the organization taught you, and you can see the difference. You can really see the difference. About 3 years ago, I started giving a presentation, a 4-hour wellness presentation to new hire staff. And so now you have 100 people that have gone through, that have a different mindset than the 300 other people that work there, right? That were never given that information. So there is hope, and people are kind of talking about it, but there is still a very stark contrast. And the problem is, because they weren't shown, they don't know, right? They think that they're doing a really good job. They think that you just, as a male, as a female, as a correctional officer, whatever, you just stuff this stuff down. You just don't let it bother you. Like Joel said earlier, things that are just part of the job. That there are, and there's an incredible documentary, and it's called The Razor's Edge, and it was put out by the Canadian Correctional Officer Union, I believe. And there's a scene in there where officers are responding to an inmate that was hurt or cut or something, and as they're trying to help and render aid, the inmates are yelling and screaming and banging, let him die, and that happens, right? That, like, every day. It's not always the things that we do, like it's not the CPR always. It's the things that the inmates are saying after you were down on your hands and knees doing it. And unfortunately, a lot of us, me, I didn't know that that wasn't a good strategy. I came from a household where dad said it was all in your head. And I didn't even take ibuprofen until I was in my, 30s, because, so how many headaches did I live through? Right. But, so the education piece is huge. And how do you get staff that hate change? How do you get staff that, are submerged in this, this incredibly crazy world every day? How do you get them to say, hey, you need to take time for yourself? Just do this straw breathing thing. They would be like, are you crazy? Like, what does that even do? you know. But that's what we're really trying to do. And so that's why I wrote my books, because I'm at a point in my life where I don't really care what people think about me anymore. I'm at a point in my career where I don't care what people think about me anymore. And I needed to put it out there, right? Like I needed to say, there's all this good information floating around, and there's this, there's, doctors and counselors and therapists, all these people putting out all this good information, but we don't care because we're cynical, or because our administration says, hey, here's this wellness person, and you should listen to them. They're going to give you this class and it's super good information. And we're like, yeah, whatever, or like I started yoga classes at my facility last week, and you should see some of the emails that I got. Like, why, like, this doesn't make any sense for a big tough guy to try to roll around on the ground and do yoga. But we're starting to try to introduce some intentional strategies, some avenues for them to not only educate themselves, but to actually like work on themselves. And so writing my books, talking about it, the goal is to say, hey, there were nights that I was a terrible person. There were arguments. There were things that I said to my family, my kids, my wife. My wife, bless her heart, loves to argue, and I had teenagers. I still have teenagers, so they know everything. They're super smart, and the conversation is, take out the trash. Hey, will you take out the trash? Well, what does a teenager do? They drag their feet. Actually, what a teenager does is very similar to what an inmate does. And so when you're sitting there listening to that, I'm sitting on my couch focusing, and I hear this conversation start, right? Same as me saying, hey, dude, go to your room. And then I'm this and I'm that, and they're dragging their feet and they're slow. And then they get there and they slam the door and all this. And so it's back and forth, back and forth. Take out the trash. Oh, I will in a second. I said, take out the trash. And they're going back and forth, and I lose my mind. I stand up, I yell, I separate my wife and my teenager like they're combatants in a day room. And I tell my son, I'll clean it up for you guys tonight. Take out the trash now. And then I told my wife to stop, be quiet, that doesn't work very well. And it wasn't a very good evening after that, but it's because I wasn't dealing with the things that were happening to me at work, right? I call it baseline baggage. We all have baggage. We all have things in our past, experiences, all these things that we carry around, and then we just add on top of it, right? And corrections is great about just adding and adding and adding. But again, so I've never been seriously assaulted. I've had a couple inmates go after me. I've broken up some fights and whatever. So it's hard for me to say, well, what the hell happened to me? Like nothing happened to me. But then I go back and I look at it and I say, that's not the truth. That's not the case, because every day when I put on my uniform, every day when I think about the next day going into work on my Monday, I start to get anxious. My chest tightens a little bit. When I put on my uniform, when I walk into my facility, anything can happen at any time. And over the years, over your career, you stop feeling that anxiety, but it's there. Your body's still reacting. Your heart's still running a million miles a minute, but it's just Thursday. It's like not a big deal, right? So I didn't know that nothing had to happen to me for stuff to be happening to me. Right. And it wasn't until I did a lot of self-study, a lot of reading, a lot of self-reflection, identifying my triggers, things like that, to say, yeah, here's my problem. And this thing is a thing. It's not the inmates. The inmates aren't the enemy. I don't know if you guys are zombie fans. I'm a huge zombie fan, but in those shows, in that movie, in the genre, over time, zombies are not the problem. It's other people that become the problem. And we are trained very well to deal with inmates. We are trained very well to navigate that and the things that they do and say to us. It's everything else that becomes the problem. It's the other people that we work with. It's our relationship. It's life outside, when for 16 hours a day, everybody does exactly what I say do. But when I go home, nobody listens to me. Everybody acts like I'm not even there, or the lady at line in front of me at the grocery store is taking her time, and it just really just driving me crazy. And it's all because I was trained to behave a certain way inside. And the argument is, well, corrections isn't, the corrections itself doesn't do it. It's not, that's not the only thing. No, you're right. It's not. It's everything that's happened in my life leading up to that. And I tell people, corrections is like Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson was always weird. But when he got rich and got a lot of money, he got super weird. And if you're insecure, if you're a jerk, if you're a liar, any of that, the correctional environment will make that worse. It will expose it, it'll manipulate it. And then we put you in this pressure cooker and say, oh, be safe, maintain the civility and the peace and the housing unit with 100 people that don't know about the rules. And we scare the crap out of the people. And then we wonder why they're tense and freaking out all the time. And so it's a hard sell, man, when you say, hey, I know that you're a great correctional officer. You're really good at what you do, but you're a terrible human being outside. And that's basically what it was for me. My wife, I got into a beautiful, I ruined a beautiful Saturday night with some friends, and she just told me, she goes, you're no good with people. You have to figure it out. And I did. And so the mission has become, get other people to figure it out, get other people to understand, hey, that argument I had with my wife and my son about the trash can, yeah, that's really close to what you just argued about the other night, because we're the same person. Like, a jailer is a jailer no matter where you go. We have the same stresses. We have the same craziness that we're exposed to. And so that's what I wanted to show him. And I didn't feel like I could tell him that without saying, hey, I am you, inside and out. And that's really, it's helped. But it's a long process, because it takes a lot of reflection. It takes a lot of, sitting with yourself and saying, what happened to me? What's wrong with me? And, but thankfully, there's a lot more resources out there now. I can say wellness, I can say mindfulness, I can say triggers in a classroom now, and people don't laugh at me or ask what it is. So we're getting there, but this thing is a gigantic ocean liner that's heading for the iceberg, and it's just going to take a little bit of time to turn it around. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my pitch. That's my, my 2 cents on that, and why we're a big piece to this fixing the culture, is us just kind of realizing that we're broken, that we are, cannibalizing each other. And we just need to stop. We need to, for me, kind of a fun little exercise that I do is I don't speed anymore. I set my cruise control on the interstate. I have a 17-minute ride home, without traffic. And I set my cruise control, and I watch the rest of the world go crazy around me. And it's so therapeutic. I'll follow a semi. I don't care. I let people in. I do all those things. And then I try to tell myself, I saw a car tonight, a couple of people in there. And my first thought, I saw the guy's arm hanging out the window, and he had some tattoos on his hand and on his arm. And they weren't, good tattoos. They were, do them in your Uncle Bobby's basement tattoos. And my first thought was, oh crap, like, here we go. But then I thought, you know what? maybe they're out here because they're driving to a job. Maybe look at that car they're driving. It's not a reliable vehicle. I'm blessed to have a reliable vehicle. I'm blessed to not be in that position. What happened in their life that put them in this position? What events, what, all those things. But it's all that is an intentional thought process, something that I have to, work on to erase, all my automatic thoughts that I've had for 20 years working in a correctional facility, sizing people up, judging them right away based on their actions. So yeah. Do you want me to? I could keep talking.
Well, William, that for me, very, very moving, very real. And if you want to keep talking a little bit, I am going to ask you some of your strategies. So what I was hearing, I've heard you talk about, reframing your mindset. I've heard you talking about working with gratitude, just your image of being in the car. You talked about self-reflection, sitting with yourself. Would you be willing to share some of what you've done, some of your strategies, techniques, skills, whatever you've been developing, working on?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty strong faith, and I dove into that as I was coming out of this thing, and you know, again, starting to look at people differently, and starting to make myself uncomfortable in conversations. I took I took a training not too long ago. The Racial Equity Institute put out a training, and it was the most uncomfortable 2 days of my life. And I was the only law enforcement person in the room. Everybody else worked for a nonprofit. And it was not very friendly towards us. And but I learned a lot. And for me, it is every morning pointing out things that I'm grateful for. Like again, I spend a lot of time in my car driving back and forth. I've never driven a vehicle with duct tape on the window. Like you see these cars with the plastic and the duct tape. I've never done that. I have kids that are healthy and happy most of the time. I have a wife that loves me, so for me, it is maybe a form of grounding, instead of saying, hey, there's this desk in front of me and there's white cables and I'm in my house and not in a flashback, whatever. I talk about, and I say them out loud, I have a beautiful house. I live in a safe neighborhood. Like the things that I've seen are a very tiny percentage of the population of people. The world is not a dark and scary place. Sometimes my world can be, but the world itself isn't. And then one of the other things that I do is I have a very intentional routine when I go to work. And then when I come home. And so when I go to work, one of the things that really was stressing me out and pissing me off, honestly, was that I couldn't control anything in my life. Not the time I came home from work, not the inmates in the facility. I mean, I say we control them, but we don't. If they want to raise hell, they just raise hell. So I said, you know what? I can control when I take a shower. I can control how long I'm in the shower. I can control where I put my keys and my wallet. And I didn't realize this until I was talking to my buddy who's into meditation and things. And he said, man, you have a routine set up to where you're separating yourself from your personal life and preparing yourself for your professional life. And so it sort of is that transition from, okay, I'm dad. Oh, here I am. And then I can control that. I can control when I leave my house. I can control all of those things. And then I just had to just start saying, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to be home tonight, and that's okay. Thank God I have a job. You know, thankfully, when the whole world shut down 3 years ago, I mean, I still had a job. I've never worried about being laid off. You know, it's just, for me, it's being very, very thankful and very, vocal about those things. And, it really helps me. It works for me. Some of the other things that I do, I like the breathing. I do the 4-4-4 breathing, but I really like this 4-8 through a straw. And I did tapping therapy for a while. Just any little thing that I can do to recenter myself and to say, look, the world is beautiful. There are some fantastic people. So let me give you this, and this is maybe completely off the wall, and you guys would be like, why do we even invite this guy? So yesterday I had a thought, and the thought was, there are some bad people in this world. And as soon as that thought left my brain, it didn't feel right to me. And so I kind of changed it. And I said, there are some people in this world that do bad things. And I don't really like that either, because why are they doing the bad things? What's it? Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into that. And I kept kind of reducing that sentence down to where I felt comfortable. And then I just ended up with people, that there are just people, and people are just trying to be happy and make their way. And some of them are crazy, and some of them don't do things that I agree with. But at the end of the day, they're just people. And, and then the reflection piece was, okay, you've done some things that you're not proud of. You've upset people. You've said crazy things to people. Like, are you any different? Are you any better? Are you the bad people that are in the world? So for me, and maybe that sounds goofy to you guys, but for me, it's really just figuring out when I feel something that I pay attention. That we have a thing in corrections called situational awareness, and Joel probably knows about this, but it's like, what's around me, what's going on, what are the dangers. And so for me, it's internal situational awareness. It's like, why do I feel this? What is this emotion? Where did it come from? And how can I work through it? And that has taken me from having bad weeks, bad days, to just bad moments. And so for me, that's been really helpful, really good. But it's all about paying attention to what I need at that moment. Sometimes it changes, right? Sometimes you go for a walk, or sometimes I whatever, do goofy things that, that people do, go fishing or go to the zoo or whatever. But I know that I work in a toxic environment. I know that if I don't do anything, that it's going to get me. And I don't want it to get me. So I do whatever I can do. And that includes talking about it and helping people and trying to, write and speak in a way that people are like, holy crap, that makes sense. Because I have watched a lot of good people, officers, change, unrecognizable from when I started. And they're the Walking Dead through the halls, divorces, and then stuck, can't leave, that don't know anything else. Like it's sad, because these are great human beings that are losing a fight that they don't even know they're in. And so that's where I come in, and that's where I say, hey, look, you can make fun of me. You can, do whatever you want, but this is a real thing. And, if just like CPR is a real thing, just like self-defense is a real thing, and you could ignore it if you want, but it's coming for you. And so yeah, man, I honestly, my survival strategy is just to survive and to do whatever it takes to be the husband, the father, the neighbor, that the people around me deserve. And so that's the goal. That's the goal, man.
William, thank you. We have a few minutes left. We definitely want to honor everybody's time, but I would like to open this up. I know we have at least 2 correctional officers here on the call, and I want to initially open it up for these folks if they want to have any dialogue back and forth with William. But please know you get priority here.
Joel, that's your cue. Oh,
yeah. I'm looking through the participants, and I'm pretty sure I recognize. I think the couple of names I'm seeing are names that I'm very familiar with from my place. So I think, yeah, there's definitely a few of us on here tonight, and on behalf of us, I'll thank you again, William, for everything you do. Like I said, I think you have a real talent for just speaking in non-clinical terms, like just boiling it down for what it is, right? Just like when I read your latest book, I found myself saying, like, I felt these things before, and I didn't know what they were at the time, right? And I didn't know how to deal with them. One of the best reviews I got from one of my coworkers is I kind of forced him to, I really encouraged him to read your book while he was doing on a post where he had time to read. And he came back up a few hours later and he thanked me. He's like, you know what? He's like, I found myself shaking during parts of that book, and holy crap. Then he took it home to his wife that night to read, and he woke up to a letter from her the next day saying, I had no idea this is what your environment could be like. And he's like, so yeah, that's the effect you have, and sharing this. And I think it's long overdue for us to share some of these conversations and change there's a culture we need to change to help all of us, right? And yeah, I appreciate you being a leader in that fight.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Hello. I'm
Hello.
Rafi. I'm a corrections officer in Maine. I used to work at Maine State Prison, and now I'm going to start working in the county jail. So I actually have interviews this week with 3 different county jails, and one of them had to close half of its facility because of lack of staffing. And part of me is like, oh, it's my calling. Maybe I could go there and help with staffing and help with the morale. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough in corrections, keep people there. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, William's one of the people that got me into corrections, his YouTube channel. So yeah, I'm getting my bachelor's in social work right now, but I want to be a corrections officer. So that's my story. Anyway, thank you.
We spoke on the phone when I had a college visit with my son that day, and we were driving home, and I was talking to you on the phone about some things that were going on. And that's I love when you reach out, and that's the beautiful thing, man. And something that I didn't have is being able to reach out, being able to talk, being able to bounce ideas off each other, and have these resources and say, what am I getting into? And one of the things I didn't realize that was so prevalent is that people didn't want to talk to people in their own facility. And so I get a lot of questions sent to me about, hey, how do I do this? Or what do I do this? And I'm like, well, what are they doing in your facility? Well, they're not afraid to ask because that culture there doesn't allow that. So, no, I think it's awesome. Rafi, when you send me an email, you make my day. If you want it, you'll go get it and you'll be fine. I mean, none of us thought we were going to make it. None of us got into it. And then the first day we're like, you know what? This is amazing. This is it. Most of us had a ton of doubts, very scary moments, and we still do. So you hang in there and you keep me posted.
Also peer support. You're saying peer support. Peer support's a problem. I took the stress and law enforcement class with American Military University,
Mhm.
And we went into the whole like, problem with peer support, it's the confidentiality and the way the higher ups are using it to get information to get people in trouble. So it's a problem. And also, I remember at Maine State Prison, the head of peer support would come to me and he would say, "I'm worried about mindfulness because it could have negative effects on trauma, and more studies need to be done." And he was very concerned about that. But that's something I want to study in my graduate studies, like that side of things, because it intrigues me, like how mindfulness needs to be adjusted based on people's trauma. But yeah, it's definitely interesting stuff.
Well, I look forward to it, and when you're all done with that, you let me know, and I'll have you on, and we'll talk.
Okay, awesome.
Well, we also heard from Susan Hiltz, who is correctional officer, and she says, "Hi, I would like to say thank you. Everything you said is all true."
Well, thank you.
So we can certainly open it up. Again, we've got 2 minutes. Anybody wants to just say hi or drop something they want to offer up to William?
Well, Dave Mitchell here. I'm a correctional officer in Canada. I work with Joel. Joel turned me on to your book, and I want to thank you very much for writing that, because as I was reading the book, it's very sneaky how you did that. You just started by telling a story, and then all of a sudden I slapped my head and said, "Holy shit, that's me!"
Right.
And so I want to thank you for your non-clinical viewpoint on that, on how you relay in everyday language the stress and trauma that we carry within us every day. It took reading your book to really understand that a lot for myself, because I didn't understand what I was going through a lot of the time. I didn't recognize it until you put it in front of me as an anecdote. And I said, well, of course, that's what it is. That's me. So thank you very much, Bill, for writing that book. Do you go by Bill or Will? Sorry.
It's all fine. Whatever you want to call me, I'll answer to
Well,
anything.
Mr. Young, thank you very much for writing
Oh,
that book. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. The thing is, we're I have kind of a motto: what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And the things that you're going through, I'm going through, Joel's going through, a lot of people are going through, even though they don't say it. And so that's what kind of gives me motivation when I feel alone, when I feel like I can't do it. Right. One of the things in corrections is we've all had situations that we've had to run into where I couldn't have done it without the guys and gals that were running in with me. There's no way in my right mind would I have done any of the things that I've done. And this is the same way, right? This is we're in a fight. And I know that when I get off this call and I go, and if I start to have a bad night, I know that, you guys are out there, that Joel's out there, that Susan's out there, everybody's out there going through the same things. And so I can reach out, or I can just know that I'm going to be okay because you guys are going to be okay too. So.
All right. Well, on that note, William, of community and care, just want to express once again great appreciation for you taking time to being with us tonight, and wish you and all your brothers and sisters good health, safety, wealth, and health and growth. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. It's great to see you. Thank all of us for joining here today. And Katie, maybe you want to say goodbye as well?
Thanks so much, William, and thanks for everyone who's on the call today.
All right, you guys be good. Love you guys.
Love you guys.